Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Bosch number DS150I. This is a motion sensor, is what it is. Very typical and very common. You'll see this motion sensor. I believe that Bosch is the original equipment manufacturer, the OEM for this. And you'll see this item private labeled by a number of other companies who sell access control hardware. So if Schlage Electronics, and I believe that this is an actual example, will be able to sell you a keypad, they'll be able to sell you a low energy operator, they'll be able to sell you key switches, they'll be able to sell you the variety of different access control, networked, online, offline products. They're probably not going to create a factory to build motion sensors, and they'll just purchase them from an OEM and then private label them. And my point of all of that is you sure want to stay within the ecology of the system that you're working on. So if you're doing an access control by company A, buy all of their material. Bringing in another part from a different manufacturer may complicate warranty claims, so stay within a single manufacturer, because according to that manufacturer, they would certainly agree to the statement, has it all been tested and engineered and found to be compatible with each other. If you are mixing and matching different parts while they're completely the same material, you may want to avoid inviting the possibility of a warranty claim. It's possible. I've heard it, and don't want you to have to hear it. But nonetheless, if you're looking for an exit sensor, this would be a great option. This is the white version. They make it in black as well. Now, what is this meant to do? Well, it's obviously meant to indicate to some electrified hardware that there is, motion within the scanned area. So, what would be an example of that? Well, an example of that would be you have electromagnetic locks on a pair of doors. You have a motion sensor over those doors, and as you approach the opening to egress, the motion sensor will open the circuit, allowing the power to the magnets to drop out. Magnets are unlocked. You can exit freely. So in essence, this acts as a request to exit switch, and motion is what triggers that. And that example is very common because on the exterior side of that opening, they'll have a keypad, so they know who's entering the building, or they'll be locked with those magnetic locks, and then some sort of access control to gain entry. And that's really where we will certainly see this. This motion sensor can be used in applications where you need a request to exit to control some sort of electrified hardware. It could also, be an automatic door operator as well. Really only limited to what hardware is available, that you're putting into that hardware set. So this is going to be designed for those installations where you require a request to exit, or what we would call a REX, R-E-X, a REX switch. And it detects motion in its coverage area and signals an access control system or door control device. Okay, so there is some extended description information down below. There is installation instructions, which we will get to. Let's first just do a visual review of everything in the box. Overall width of the sensor, about 6 5/16. Overall height, about 1 3/4 inches or so. Overall width, or projection, I should say, about 1.5 inches. And we can easily remove the cover. Just insert a flat blade instrument. I really like something very thin. Screwdrivers are too thick. I find a really thin blade works really well, and I don't leave any evidence that I've opened it. Not evidence, but any damage. So there are 3 components. There's the cover. Okay. There is the mounting bracket. It says door on it. And then there's the sensor itself. Okay. And you have your pins there for your connecting cable. You have dip switches, which we're going to go over when we get to the installation instructions. That's obviously a relay for doing whatever, for doing the work of the unit. So that's the sensor itself. We'll put that aside. The only thing that's really left here is going to be the connection cable, and we'll go over the identification of all the wires before we're done. going to have some installation components. 2 screws, 2 plastic anchors. They get you started with at least something. Then they're going to have a couple of blinders, and these blinders are going to fit into this area so that you can kind of tailor what the sensor is picking up. You might want to blind it from one particular side of an opening for whatever reason. You know, when it comes to sensors, and there are 2 black ones as well, this hardware package, they're going to just toss into white or black units. You know, you might want to blind it or trim what it can view, because you'll have strange situations when it comes to sensors. A typical service call for a high-energy automatic door operator is that the client calls and says, yeah, the doors are ghosting. They're just opening for no reason. And the technician goes to the job site and says, well, how long has that big giant planter been sitting there? Oh, yeah, that's right. We just had a delivery this morning, and we filled all the area here in the front of our hardware store. Well, the wind blows, okay, moves the leaves on the planter, triggers it. Conversely, you might need to blind this, you know, sensor, because you might have something that when the air conditioning comes on, it moves, okay? So you might want to trim it to one side. So that's the components of the box. Let's switch to the screen view and dive into those installation instructions. Okay, so this is the item that we are indeed looking at, the DS150i. And just the extended description information first. The DS150i is specifically designed for REX, request to exit applications. The DS150i detects motion in its coverage area and signals an access control system or door control device. You can use it on single or double doors. You might find that you need 2 to properly cover an entire double door. You can mount it to the wall or to the ceiling, and sometimes the ceiling mount is preferable. Internal vertical pointability, you can take the item and you can shift that plus or minus a certain set of degree. Wraparound coverage pattern, 12, 24 AC or DC operation, up to 64-second adjustable latch time, and that's where the dip switches come in. Selectable relay trigger mode, selectable fail safe, fail secure. Again, dip switch controlled. Okay. Now, the link to the installation instructions. And these are included, of course, with the package, so let's just start at the beginning. The DS150i is a passive infrared detector designed for request to exit applications, UL listed, UL 294. The relay output consists of 2 Form C contacts, double pull, double throw, and can be adjusted to latch from approximately half of a second to 64 seconds. The latch time features 2 modes, resettable and non-resettable, which means it either activates and then you can't change it until the period of time elapses, or if you enter the activation zone, walk out of it, you can walk back into it and it will start the countdown over. I explain those in opposite, the way that they're read here. The relay can be programmed for fail-safe or fail-secure during a power loss. You can mount it on the ceiling or wall and mask its pattern for more effective use based on installation needs. The DS150i is not designed as a primary means of exit for emergency egress applications, and in fact, if you have this installed, you're certainly going to see as a requirement a key switch that is directly wired so that it will interrupt the power feeding the locking device. That will certainly be considered required by code. Available in light gray or black, the 150 or 151. They call it white. It's an off-white sort of color. Mounting. Select a mounting location over the center of the door or doors to be covered. The target must walk directly toward the detector. Mount the detector on the ceiling, wall, or door frame. The detector can be surface mounted or mounted to a key switch plate with a D-size hole. You have to make you can purchase this optional trim plate if you wanted to get it down to a single gang box. Now, why you might install it to the ceiling is going to be talked about later, but it would be helpful if you wanted to more equally balance your pattern over a doorway by ceiling mounted. So we'll get to that later in the installation instructions. The mounting height range is 7 to 15 feet above the floor. Now, remove the back cover from the detector, and that's where I had said earlier something very thin is very appropriate to use to make that work. Into the locking tab and pry the cover off. You want to be careful. You don't want to break anything. Those plastic items they don't tolerate too much force. When the back cover is removed, the front cover and detector module separate. There is the mounting portion. There is, of course, the cover, and then there's the electronics and the sensor itself. Route the wiring. Loosely mount the back cover to the mounting surface using the supplied mounting screws. Mount the detector module to the back cover, and then you aim the detector for the desired coverage. And it's alluded to here in Figure 2. Okay, what they're talking about. And let's switch to the camera view so we can take a look at that. Okay, so to trim or to adjust, you'll notice in Figure 2 that they have the wall mount angle and the ceiling mount angle. The wall mount angle is over here by your pin connector. Okay, so you get the concept that when this is installed on the wall, it's going to be pointed down quite severely, and then your adjustment is right here. Okay. Now, if you're doing a ceiling application, your adjustment's on the other side. Whoa. Okay, where you'll be able to trim that based on your required installation. That's what that looks like. Now, let's switch back to the screen view and continue with this video. Okay, so we are continuing on. They're defining terms here as well. Your dip switches, your wire plug, your LED, which can be turned on and off, by the way. Only apply power after all connections are made and inspected. Can't say that enough, how important it is to test your power. Attach the wiring connector down to the circuit board. It gives you a colors and numbers for the wires, and then defines them over here. So basically, it shows you what these two double pull, double throw, 2 form C is what they're called. Common, normally open, normally closed. Common, normally. So we have 2 relays. Well, no, we have 2 form C is what it is. And you can look up form C. It's just form C is a single pull, double throw, but there are 2 of them. So you can go between normally closed and normally open. Okay, so now relay contact wiring. And I think when we study this chart, we start to understand, why they're shown the way that they're shown. So in a let's start with defining these terms. Fail safe means that when the power is disconnected, whatever is locking there will generally be unlocked because the circuit would be open. Now, first of all, and fail secure, upon the absence of power, whatever you have is in the locked condition. You'll notice that they have fail safe and fail secure, and the normally closed and normally open are switched here. That's because you're going to jumper those, which I think are in switch 2. Fail safe is considered standard. Okay, so when there's no power, it's the circuit's open, meaning there's no there's not continuity going through the circuit. So if it's connecting to an electromagnetic lock, it's going to be unlocked. So you have to determine which is the proper state. And the question to ask is, upon loss of power, how do I want things to operate? So fail secure and fail safe, fail secure are governed by that dip switch number 2. Shows you what the circuit looks like when the power is off, but when it's under normal powered condition, those circuits would be closed. When motion is detected, it will open the circuit, NO, open the circuit, cut power to the electromagnetic lock, allowing egress. And of course, fail secure is just simply going to operate in the opposite sort of circumstance. So once you know that, you don't have fail safe and fail secure on here, it's either or. That's controlled by a dip switch. So that's important to know. As we get down to page 2 of the installation instructions, pins 6 through 8 comprise an EMF spike protected relay. See figure 3. Okay. Use this relay when conducting inductive loads to the detector. This relay protects the detector from inductive loads that might deliver damaging EMF spikes. Pins 3 through 5 comprise the non-EMF spike protected relay. This relay is best used for non-inductive loads when connecting an inductive load that is not spike protected, such as a magnetic lock, which will be common, to the detector. Use either a bridge rectifier or a diode. Failure to use them is going to prematurely cause the unit to fail. And here's how they'll show how to bring in the bridge rectifier and a diode. Non-EMF, spike-protected relays would be pretty typical for our application. Here are the dip switches now, showing you how they're set. So, dip switch 1 determines whether it's resettable or non-resettable. And it's kind of what I said earlier. Let's go into it in detail. The relay activates when the detector first sees motion, when it's resettable, and additional motion restarts the latch timer. That's pretty simple and straightforward. So the relay deactivates only when the detector no longer sees motion and the latch time has expired. Non-resettable is the relay activates when the detector first sees motion. It deactivates only when the latch timer ends. If motion is still present, this system works best with access control. So you don't want to have your circuit normally open, by having it reset. You probably want it to be triggered, let the countdown run, it's locked at that point. New motion would have to restart the timer. And that's what it looks like. Resettable is default. Now your relay mode, we talked about that. Fail safe or fail secure. Fail safe, in the event of a power loss, the Rex detector releases the device connected to it, magnetic door lock or electric strike. Why? Let's look again. Fail safe. Okay, so when the power is off, meaning there is no power to the unit, the circuit will be normally open. A normally open circuit is going to not allow continuity through the circuit. Fail secure. In the event of a power loss, the Rex detector does not release the device connected to it. For example, a magnetic lock or a strike. In the fail secure mode, the Rex detector shall be installed in a manner that does not impair the intended operation of panic hardware used in conjunction with a Rex detector. You can't install this motion detector so that it doesn't permit emergency egress when that's required. And that's all done on dip switch 2. Fail safe as default. Dip switch 3 is whether or not that LED will turn on when it's activated. You may not want it to activate. Okay, that's purely your condition or your choice. Enabled, of course, would be default. Now, the rest of your dip switches, 4, 5, and 6, are going to allow you to configure your latch time. So however you set the configuration of these is going to achieve your half of a second up to and through 64 seconds. Simple and straightforward. The question is, how long should the door remain unlocked while you're going through it? I don't have any guidance in that regard. It depends on the application. It might also depend on, the environmental conditions, the pattern of traffic, of foot traffic going through the opening. It might just make sense that it has a longer delay time or latch time during certain, types of use. Setup and testing. Apply power to the unit. Wait at least 3 minutes for the detector to settle. So back to our cable. Your yellow, violet, blue, gray, green, and orange. Those are going to be your wires. 1 and 2, of course, are going to be your power. Negative and positive terminals for powering the unit. Test the unit by walking directly through the coverage area towards the door. Aim the detector up or down if necessary to obtain the proper coverage. Tighten the screws after aiming the detector. And along with that, you'll check that your latch relay time is sufficient. Dip switches 4, 5, and 6. Make any changes. I would be powering the unit off before I threw dip switches. It doesn't say to do that, but that's just, my superstition when it comes to electronics. After confirming proper operation, replace the cover and walk test one more time. Make any changes necessary. Other information. Single door use. The pattern can be masked to remove the outer zone using the supplied masking kit. Snap the masking wedges into place in the outer surface of the lens. The masking wedges eliminate zones A, B, K, and L. So when we get down here, top view, pattern on the floor. What you're looking, if you were looking down from where this item was installed, this is what you're going to see. A, B, K, and L is how you'll drop out those zones per the mask. And let's switch to the camera view, and I can show you how that's masked off. Okay, so now showing you how to mask that off. There are 2 of these blinders, I had called them earlier, and you will literally just put them inside of here and just kind of snap them in place. They literally click in place. Okay? So very simple and straightforward how you can mask that off. I can't tell you if it's typical and common to do so, but it certainly is common enough where people, need to be able to do that. Okay? Let's switch back to the screen view. Now, what's interesting to see here is, depending on how you tip or adjust the position of the unit on the wall, this is what you're looking at. 14-degree positive, and then negative really draws it in down and tight, shown here. Okay? Pointed at negative 14, pointed at positive 14. And then, of course, you draw your masks on either side. You're going to be clipping that on either side. So, you might have a stairway on one end that you might want to clip off. Who knows? Whatever it could be. But interesting that they show you how that pattern is going to run. Let's move to page 4. Now, the application. Double entry exit doors without a center post present a problem resulting from the gap that might exist between the doors. While the gap is usually filled with soft or pliable weather stripping, there is an opening that vandals can use to insert an object through to trip the sensor. So what they're saying is, if you have a split astragal here, you could fish something inside of the doors to be able to just create motion. So be mindful of that. The center post is what they call a mullion. So be mindful that that could be a way that, this sort of system would be defeated. If the object is a different temperature from the background, the DS150 interprets the temperature change as a request to exit because they are calling it passive infrared. That's the technology. It's going to pick up heat. Install the DS150I over the center of double doors with a center post. If there is no center post, consider an alternative approach, and here's where you might be able to use a ceiling-mounted version. Which, isn't probably going to solve the problem, but I think what they're suggesting is a dual mount. Okay, so you could create, two sensors. You could clip them so that you're dropping out your A and B over here, your K and L over here, and help to eliminate that sort of problem. Now the ceiling mount, longer objects can still be used to enter the coverage pattern. This type of entry would now be much more difficult if you were to ceiling mount the unit. Install and center one DS150i over each of the two doors if you're in a dual mount, and wire the outputs so that either detector permits exiting. Reduce the probability of interference from foreign objects by masking them like we just said. Regulatory notes for your review, along with an electrical profile of the unit, which you can review. There's no internal battery. Be mindful of that. The Form Cs, single pole, double throw. There's two of them. Rated at 2 amps, 30 volt, AC or DC, max, temperature range, etc. Okay.
The high temperature in Mexicali, Mexico is 106 degrees.
They are listening, is the bottom line. Okay, let's finish up this video on camera. Okay, in conclusion, it's a very fine quality item. I can't tell you how many bushel loads of this sensor that we've sold over the years, but if it's not broke, don't fix it. I have seen deployments of these installed in countless areas for the exact sort of application that we've discussed. I'm going to tell you how long the lead is on the wire. About 3 foot would be very close to reasonable on that. When it comes to Bosch material and door hardware, I can't really say that we sell much of it because, all the major hardware manufacturers we deal with are either OEMs or, have complete closed garden type systems in the sense of, you may not be aware of where they're purchasing the material from, but nonetheless. But this Bosch exit sensor is a very typical and common item. There is a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Bosch products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. I would suggest that you review that. It's a very typical piece of equipment that we have here, and I've never heard of one failing. I've seen these installed for a long time. Years and years, never had a problem with a single one. Any questions on the Bosch DS150i request to exit or REX sensor, passive infrared detector, or any other Bosch product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you very much.